Part of the Great War, also known as World War I, was marked by a complex web of alliances and escalating tensions among the major European powers. The conflict began with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife by a Serbian nationalist, namely Gavrilo Princip, in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. This event triggered a series of diplomatic and military actions as Austria-Hungary, supported by Germany, issued an ultimatum for the Serbian government. When Serbia refused, Austria-Hungary invaded, leading to a chain reaction of alliances being activated. Germany declares a war. Russia sided with Serbia. France supported Russia, and Great Britain was allied with France. World War I wasn't just a simple one-on-one fight. Two major alliances faced off, the Central Powers and the Allied Powers. The Central Powers, formed by Germany and Austria, were later on joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. On the other side, the Allied Powers initially consisted of Britain, France, and Russia. These core groups had roots in the Triple Entente and Triple Alliances.
Triple Alliance, which are Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente, including France, Great Britain, and Russia, created a situation where a local conflict in the Balkans could escalate into a global war. Colonial rivalries between European powers, particularly between Germany and Great Britain, further heightened tensions and contributed to the outbreak of the war.
The culture during World War I was characterized by a strong sense of nationalism and patriotism, with many Europeans initially celebrating the start of war, believing it would bring glory and improve the standing of their nations. However, as the war progressed, it became a total war, with government reorganizing the economy around war production and implementing rationing. The war saw a mobilization of diverse populations, including soldiers from colonies and dominions of the participating countries. The war also led to significant disillusionment among soldiers and civilians, as the brutal trench warfare, poison gas attacks, and staggering death tolls. In Asia, Japan seizing the opportunity to improve its status, and the conflict becoming truly global even before the entry of the United States in 1918. The war also transformed the Middle East, leading to the significant changes in the region's power dynamics and the emergence of new nations.
One of the most notable developments was the expansion of women's roles in society. As men went off to fight, women entered the workforce, taking over jobs previously held by men. This led to a significant shift in the way society viewed women, and ultimately, the Representation of the People Act 1918 granted the vote to all men over 20 and 8.5 million women over 30 who were householders or property owners.
Most of the countries did not expect that the World War I will be a long and deathless war. That is why it is a disaster for some of the countries that is not well prepared. At first, the plan was for a quick military victory, not a drawn-out economic struggle. Apparently, it backs a lot. Some countries that has a large area and poor economy struggling especially with food supply, while they also need new technology of weapons in order to survive in the war. The Allies had a clear economic advantage from the start, and it only grew stronger as the war progressed. This was especially true in 1917 when Russia, the weakest ally economically, left the fight. But their loss was balanced by the entry of the United States, the wealthiest nation involved. This swap significantly boosted the Allies' overall economic power. Food shortages were particularly severe for civilians in countries like Germany and Austria-Hungary. This led to widespread hunger and malnutrition, which contributed to higher mortality rates. With Russia pulling out of World War I in 1917, German leaders must have felt a boost of optimism about their chances of ultimate victory. This turn of events likely seemed like a payoff for their gamble of backing Russian revolutionaries, particularly the Bolshevik faction. Since the war's early stages, Germany had been secretly providing support to these exiled dissidents, hoping to destabilize Russia and cripple their war effort on the Eastern Front. Russia's exit from the conflict significantly weakened the Allied force and opened up a new strategic advantage for Germany. World War I, the deadliest war in the world with over 8.5 million military deaths, finally came to a close on November 11, 1918. However, instead of a clear victory, the war concluded with an armistice. This agreement meant both sides stopped fighting, but it wasn't a formal surrender. An armistice was the quickest way to end the immense suffering and devastation caused by the war, and both sides were eager to see it come to end. So today we remember 11 November 1918 as a Remembrance Day of actual day of World War I ended. World War II. There are several reasons why there is a Second World War which affects a lot of things. The first reason is the effect of World War I, which left a huge impact on depression to the government and also the people. Some countries failed in ruling their country under democracy and some with capitalism. Second reason is the Great Depression, which started from 1930 until 1940. This affects the economic depression as well, which increased of prices, unemployment, and significant poverty happening. The third reason is fascism. As Germany lost in the First World War, Hitler believed that Germany is still superior to others and they prioritizing their national pride. Other countries like Italy and Japan also think the same way, which want to dominate other countries. After the agreement by the armistice in 1919, Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles, which said that Germany is surrendered to Allied powers. However, this made Germany feel humiliated. This country need to pay back the destruction that they caused. This event is the central starting point of the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, which leading to World War II.
At this time, it was not a unified conflict, but rather a global struggle between two opposing groups, the Allied powers and Axis powers. The Allied powers, this alliance was a collection of nations with differing political structure. It included democracies like Great Britain and the United States, alongside Soviet Union, a totalitarian dictatorship. Even though the Allied countries didn't all agree on everything, they joined forces to stop the Axis power from taking over more and more land. The Allied lacks a single leader and made strategic decisions through conferences in Tehran and Yalta. While they cooperated against their common enemy, individual Allied nations retained their autonomy. In contrast, the Axis powers were bound by a shared ideology of dictatorship and territorial conquest. This alliance included Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. Although they were formally equal partners, Germany, under Adolf Hitler's leadership, exerted significant control over the war effort. The Axis powers' lack of perfect coordination, exemplified by Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, proved to be a strategic weakness. The complex political landscape of World War II, with its uncoordinated alliances and internal divisions, significantly influenced the course of the war. World War II fundamentally altered everyday life. Patriotism became an absolute necessity, saturated with constant messages promoting war support propagandas. Women replaced men in factories, leaving behind traditional roles to symbolize unwavering national commitment. Dissent was stifled as communities prioritized unity, rationing resources to emphasize shared sacrifice. The war through darkness emerged with the revelation of the Holocaust, shattering beliefs about humanity and forcing a confrontation with human capacity for evil. Yet, this period also fostered a powerful sense of shared purpose as people come together against a common enemy. While hardship remained constant, this wartime culture was a complex mix of sacrifice, unity, and stark realization of human potential.
World War II underwent significant changes, particularly in Great Britain and the United States. Many observers believe that the war had broken down British class distinctions, with some people note that the war was a leveler of classes. Similarly, it is also noted and reported by an American journalist that Hitler was breaking down the class structure of England. This breakdown was partly due to the war effort, which required people from all walks of life towards a common goal. The war also led to significant social changes, including the growth of the British welfare state and increased state welfare throughout Western Europe. This resulted in a narrowing of the gap between rich and poor, with income tax and increased state welfare contributing to this change. The war effort also led to increased opportunities and a more equal position in society for women. Many women served in the armed forces, worked in government offices, and contributed to the war efforts, which helped lay the groundwork for the feminist movement of the 1960s. The economies shifted gears entirely, focusing on mass production of war materials. This fueled a boom in manufacturing and significant economic growth. However, this wartime mobilization wasn't without consequences. Governments took control, regulating production, prices, and wages to meet the war effort. While unemployment rates plummeted as factories churned out supplies, the staggering cost of war resulted in mounting national debt and inflation for some allied countries. Consumer goods became scarce, and the lack of access to vital resources like oil further crippled their economies. Germany's experience with hyperinflation during this time exemplifies the devastation inflicted on these nations.
These are some facts during the World War I and World War II. Did you know that Spanish flu pandemic occurred during World War I? In reality, the Spanish flu ravaged the globe from 1918 to 1920. After the war had ended, this brutal influenza strain infected an estimated 500 million people and caused millions of deaths. It's one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. It caused more deaths than the war itself. Stalin killed more people than Hitler's during purges of undesirables. He also killed an estimated 25 million people versus Hitler's 12 million. Not that either was record to be proud of though.
In Russia, things got so tough that they asked women to fight too. To leave everyone's spurs in the later years of the war, they created special allied women fighting groups called shock battalions. These were just an ordinary job helping out. In June 1917, the very first battalion of women soldiers, the first women's battalion of that, even marched right up to the front lines. Even though they stopped forming these special women's battalions after one group lost a lot of soldiers, many brave women still signed up to fight alongside the men in the regular Russian army. Millions of men then returned, leaving a surplus of single ladies. The government and media, instead of celebrating their war effort contributions, portraying all these women as a burden and slapping them with labels like old maids, men haters, and even cigarette-smoking rebels or hoydens, which is a scandalous term at that time. The solution? Shipping them off to faraway lands like Australia to find husbands or becoming brides, and fix the imbalance. This surprising negativity aimed to justify a mass immigration scheme at that time.
Hitler dead. World War II was near its end, and Soviet forces were closing in on Berlin. Hitler and his high command were hiding in an underground bunker in Berlin. Before that, he actually married Eva Braun in a small ceremony on April 29. But then, they committed suicide together on April 30, 1945. Hitler shot himself and Eva consumed a cyanide capsule. If you notice the date of their wedding and their deaths, they were married only for 40 hours. Calm and carry on. The poster was designed by the British Ministry of Information in 1939 in preparation for the World War II. It aimed to boost public morale during a time when mass air raids on major cities were a serious threat. Hitler started a bombing against major cities and civilians. There are almost 40,000 civilians killed on London. The poster encouraged a sense of calm and determination in the face of potential chaos and continue with their essential duties even under attack.
This war saw the development of groundbreaking inventions that would go on to shape the modern world. Jet planes, airplanes, radar, used for both military and civilian purposes, and the early foundations of computer technology. Medical advancement also continued during World War II, with the discovery of penicillin, the first widely used antibiotic, revolutionizing how doctors treated bacterial infections. The war even played a role in the eventual creation of NASA. The war also had a lasting social impact, particularly on the role of women. As men went off to fight, women entered the workforce in large numbers. taking on jobs previously considered unsuitable for them. This shift in societal norms paved the way for greater rights and opportunities for women after the war and up until now.